Council's website. Could I ask IT colleagues to please start the recording? And Cheryl, could you call for the sediment and intimate any apologies, please?
Thanks, Chair. I'll just run through the sediment. If you can indicate your attendance, please. Councillor Graham Barton.
Yep, here.
Councillor John McGee.
Yep.
I've got apologies from Councillor Ellen Friel and Councillor Elaine Cowan. Councillor Maureen Mackay. No. Councillor Peter Mabin.
Yeah, present. Thank you.
Councillor Claire Maitland. Here. Councillor William Lennox.
Alan here.
Councillor Billy Crawford.
Yeah.
Councillor Neil Watts.
Present.
Got apologies from Councillor Drew Filson. Councillor Jennifer Hogg. Councillor Elaine Stewart.
Yep, I'm here, thanks.
Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Cheryl. I'm going to move on to item 1 on the agenda, and that is declarations of interest. If any member has any declarations they'd like to declare? No. Okay, there's no one online. Thank you very much. Item 2 on the agenda is the hearing procedure. Members, we don't have a hearing this morning, so we don't need to go through that procedure. Cheryl, thank you very much. So we'll move on to item 3 on the agenda, and that is planning application number 22.
Yes, thank you. Okay, I'll come back to you on that. Thanks.
Councillor Mackay, we can hear you online. Okay, members, we'll go back. So item 3 on the agenda, and that is planning application number 22/0420/PP, and it's application for planning permission for erection of 28 dwelling houses with associated access, drainage and landscaping at land to rear Beech Grove House, Catrin Road, Sorn, East Ayrshire. And I'm going to hand over to Barry to take us through.
Thanks, Chair. Good morning, members. I'll firstly run through the plans and the photos to show the site and the proposals before moving on to a summary of the recommendation. So the application site is located within Sorn to the south of the River Aire, adjacent to the B713 Catrin Road. Sorry, I'm not actually showing it. And you've forgotten to do something. Hopefully that'll be it now. Sorry about that. So the application site is located within Sorn to the south of the River Aire and adjacent to the B713 Catrin Road. So you can see the application site outlined in red here. The main part of the village of Sorn is located to the north of the River Aire, and the southern part is characterised by more sparsely located dwellings along the Catrin Road, as you can see in these areas here. The application site again is shown outlined in red. You can see there is a kind of strange chunk that's taken out of it, and this was because a part of the site was sold off separately from a previous owner of the site. So the red line boundary also includes the foul and surface water pipe that's proposed to discharge to the River Aire, and also in this plan you can see the play area. Hopefully you can see my cursor there, just shown just to the north, which is where there is a developer contribution sought towards this play area, and this is approximately 250 metres away from the site. This is a slightly older version of the site plan, and the red line boundary now more or less encompasses the blue hatched area. However, it is useful just to see the contours of the site. So you can see that the low part of the site is to the north, so roughly in this location, which is the lowest part, and there is a kind of uniform upward gradient towards the rear of the site to the south. And overall there is around 13 metres difference in height between the lowest and highest parts. Site layout. The proposed access from Catrin Road is from Catrin Road, sorry, with detached houses of a variety of sizes arranged up fronting to the proposed roads. The application proposes much of the amenity space around the perimeter of the site, and as noted within paragraphs 250 to 255 of the report, a contribution to the existing play area is sought in lieu of the provision of recreational open space within the site. The north east corner of the site is occupied by a suds basin and a biodisc sewage treatment plant. As noted within the report at paragraphs 293 and 294, there is no public sewer connection within the vicinity of the site, and therefore the applicant proposes a separate biodisc treatment plant to serve all of the 28 houses. Once the treated foul water has been treated by the biodisc system, it will discharge to the River Aire via a pipe system, which is shown in the blue line. Going to the River Aire. The treatment facility would be subject to a Controlled Activities Regulation licence or a CAR licence from SEPA, and they have indicated that there would be no insurmountable reasons as to why this may not be granted, but it would be subject to this application, of course. Surface water would also be routed along the same way, following the attenuation and treatment within the suds features, including the basin. Drains are also proposed around the site perimeter, which would direct water from the fields above the site to the suds basin before discharging to the river. And just by way of an update to the consultation response from ARA, as noted in paragraph 24 on page 8, it was the intention of ARA to not adopt any of the proposed roads within the development, and instead they would remain private. The main reason for this was due to concerns about the proximity of retaining walls to the roads and the potential impact should the walls fail at any point. However, in the last day or so, ARA have changed position on this, and the developer will now be required to submit a roads construction consent application, and this will include details of the retaining walls. This will ensure that the roads allow for ARA to adopt them in future. It is possible that some of the retaining walls may need to be lowered, but it's expected that any such changes can be accommodated as non-material variations to the planning permission if granted. As noted earlier, the site slopes upwards from north to south. In order to accommodate the dwellings and infrastructure within the site, a series of retaining structures and embankments are proposed. In addition, in order to accommodate the visibility display to the southwest, it appears that a significant cut is required along the site frontage. A cut to the site is also proposed to the southern edge, where a 1 in 3 embankment is proposed, and elsewhere within the site the retaining structures are shown in blue, and these range in height from around 1 metre to over 3 metres and nearly 4 metres in some cases. In particular, it is important to note the proposals to the site frontage, where there would be a 1 in 3 embankment of around 3 to 4 metres higher than the road level, and a retaining wall of over 3 metres in height. So this is within this area here. This will have some impact on views from the B713 road, and details of retaining structures and landscaping will be important here in ensuring the impact is mitigated as far as possible. So these plans now show the sections through the site. So this section is shown through the site from north to south. So just where my cursor is shown, it goes through the site at this location. So you can see in it that there is this is the northern part of the site where the cursor is at the moment. So we've got a cut-off ditch at this point, an embankment down, and then we have some retaining walls and a crib wall as well, and down through the suds basin, and then a retaining structure next to the suds basin. And this, these are also north-south sections through the site. You you can see also that the existing ground levels are shown in the kind of hatched line, and the proposed levels are obviously the black line here shown. So yep, you can see again that there are retaining structures within that. So this plan shows the traffic management proposals that were submitted with the application. It shows proposals for a range of traffic management features, as well as a footway along the eastern side of the new bridge, where just now there is no footway. This would effectively make the bridge a one-way to traffic. I do understand that some of the arrangements shown on this drawing are likely to change when it's the subject of a road opening permit from ARA. This includes the use of speed humps rather than build-outs to slow traffic. And I also understand that priority arrangement for the bridge may change so that it is traffic from the south, in other words, going into the village, which would have to give way to traffic coming from the other direction. The details of these arrangements are subject to a permit from ARA, and it is understood that the proposals would need to be advertised. The main benefit, however, would be in the provision of a continuous footway link from the southern side of Sorn to the northern side. And just moving on to some of the floor plans and elevations of the proposed houses. So there is a range of sizes proposed. They all have a similar materials type palette, using the use of reconstituted stone panels to the frontages, white render to the sides and rears, concrete tiled roof, and they have features like a bay window type features in most of the house types. So I'll just quickly run through those so you can see them all. Sorry. So this slide shows the LDP2 settlement map for Sorn. The site is within the settlement boundary of Sorn, but is not allocated. It is noted that it has been allocated in previous LDPs and local plans, and it's only since the adoption of LDP2 that the allocation has been removed. Just now to show some photographs of the site. So this is looking into the site. You can perhaps see the rough line of a post and wire fence running along this field, and that marks the northern boundary of the site. And this is roughly where the access would be proposed. This is looking the opposite direction towards Dam Head, where there's currently construction of a chalet development or lodge development in this site. And this is Dam Head Cottage on the opposite side of the site. And looking down the B713 towards the bridge in this location, and the application site is on the right-hand side. And looking another direction going towards Catrin, application site on the left-hand side, and the Dam Head lodge development on the right-hand side. And looking into the site, this is slightly out of focus, I think, but just looking into the site so you can just see what the gradient is like as well. And just panning round. And this is looking into the village. You can see the Sorn New Bridge without the footway at present. And as noted, the proposals include for the provision of a footway along this side of the bridge. It's the western side, eastern side? Eastern side of the bridge, just to join in with this footway here. And looking back in another direction with the application site in the background. And this is the play area at the moment, and the contribution would go towards the renewal of play equipment within this area. and again. So just to sum up, as noted within paragraph 2, it is recommended, or 2 of the report, it is recommended the application be approved. The principle of the residential development is considered to be acceptable under LDP2 policy Res 1 as set out on page 19 of the report, and the development is otherwise considered to be in accordance with the other relevant development plan policies with no material considerations which outweigh this. In particular, it is considered that development will help to sustain the village services and perhaps even make the provision of additional services a more viable proposition. The recommended approval is subject to the payment of a contribution towards the play area within SORN of £100,000 and a number of conditions as set out in pages 54 to 59. In particular, I draw your attention to the pre-commencement conditions. These include condition 3, which requires details of the discharge route for the combined foul and surface water drainage system to the River Aire. Condition 4 requires the discharge route to be completed before any other works commence. Condition 5 requires details of a surface water management plan, including the maintenance regimes and responsibilities. Condition 7 requires a landscaping scheme to be submitted and approved, and this includes the hard and soft landscape features, including walls, terraces, etc. I'd also like to request some changes to recommended conditions, or some of them. The first is to add a new condition which will require details of the long-term maintenance of the sewage treatment plant. At present, it's not clear that this would be adopted and maintained by Scottish Water and may remain private. So I'll just read out the wording of the proposed condition to you. So it's in 2 parts, with part A beginning, no development shall take place unless full details of the long-term maintenance of the sewage treatment plant and its associated infrastructure has been submitted to and approved in writing by the planning authority. Such details shall include maintenance regimes and responsibilities. And part B says, the maintenance details as approved under part A shall be fully implemented prior to the occupation of any of the dwelling houses approved and maintained in perpetuity unless otherwise agreed in writing by the planning authority. The second is also a new condition. It's recommended in relation to the management of surface water during construction as follows. Part A says, no development shall take place unless full details of surface water management during the entire construction phase of the development have been submitted to and approved in writing by the planning authority. Part B says, the details as approved shall be implemented on site for the duration of the construction phase or as otherwise approved in writing by the planning authority. The third change is an amendment to condition 24 on page 58. This condition requires the footway and traffic management works to be completed prior to the occupation. However, as noted, some of the detailing of these measures are subject to change during the ERA consenting process, and I therefore recommend that amending the condition slightly to add in the words or as otherwise approved in writing after the words which say per approved details, so that it was the last part would read as follows. So you've got the details of what's to be installed and then shall be installed and operational per the approved details or as otherwise approved in writing, and confirmation of the completion shall be submitted for the written approval of the planning service in consultation with the Ayrshire Roads Alliance. So that just gives flexibility for these plans, the proposals to change. Finally, noting the changed position in respect of the proposed adoption of the roads within the development, it is recommended that conditions 10 and 11 are deleted, as these relate to requirements for the details of the roads, and these will now be covered within a roads construction consent application. So that concludes my part. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Barry. Members, I'm going to open up for comments and questions at this point in time. Councillor Mackay.
Chair, thank you very much. Valerie, could I just ask, please? I think I might have missed it. So where is your condition in terms of the roads condition, please? Now, so we are taking out conditions number 10 and 11. So where is the roads construction consent being put in, please? Where is that?
No conditions required for that. We don't need an additional condition because there'll be roads being formed in terms of the Road Scotland Act. There will be a requirement for a roads construction consent to be applied for. That's my understanding anyway. So there isn't a need for a separate condition to require a roads construction consent to be submitted.
Okay, and if I can just go a wee bit further, please, with you. So just for absolute clarity here, one of the things that we're always told when we're considering applications is that we have to consider the application in front of us and not one that we would like to be in front of us. So can you just give me clarity, please, on how it is possible that we are changing from roads that were not going to be adopted to roads that are now going to be adopted, please?
We've just been taking advice from the Ayrshire Roads Alliance on this.
Okay.
It's more appropriate for them to answer that question.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Mackay, there's no fundamental changes in the actual layout of the development on that. It's how the actual roads are going to be maintained. There's been further discussions in the last few days with our colleagues in roads, and it has been agreed that the road service will take on the majority of the roads for adoption. The applicant has indicated that they're happy with that approach.
Okay, thank you. Thank you both very much for your answers. Thank you.
Councillor Lennox, do you want to come in?
Aye, please, Chair. Thanks for that presentation. I'm actually quite pleased to see this investment in housing and so on, which will hopefully create the additional demand which is required for some of the local services to be a bit more sustainable and viable. And I think we need to attract more small businesses into the village and maybe end up with a village shop or maybe even a bus service or something at some point in time. We're also seeing population decline in these rural parts of the authority, so this development helps address that concern. In terms of some of the more recent developments, ARA adopting the roads, that's, for me, that's a welcome development because it kind of concerned me when we had the site visit. Was it Wednesday or Thursday? That longer term, that was just storing up problems for the future, I think. I'm also a bit concerned about the proposed traffic calming scheme on the Catherine Road. It seems to have, that also seems to have changed over the last couple of days as well. I'm hoping I heard right when I said when I heard that there would be further consultation in terms of talking to the residents on that road as well as the wider community, because some of the proposed build outs and the proposed build outs are in a position where they could potentially impact folks' access to their property, as well as the concern about standing traffic when HGVs are sitting there, for example. So I hope I heard rightly that there's going to be additional consultation, and hopefully that is one of the conditions as well. Just one other point to make, Chair, if you'll oblige, is it also concerns me the fact that they're maybe talking about speed bumps in as opposed to build outs. Anybody that lives beside a speed bump will tell you that when HGVs are going over the top of them, they make a hell of a racket. So there's potential for noise pollution there. So I think definitely it needs further consultation, and I hopefully this is written into the conditions of the application. Thanks, Chair. Apologies for babbling there a wee bit, but
Thanks, Councillor Lennox. We're going to bring Vary in to answer those.
Thanks, Chair. There might be partly ARA maybe want to comment on this, but there will be a separate process that the traffic management proposals have to go through, and that sits with the Roads Authority, the Ayrshire Roads Alliance. So we wouldn't condition that because it's a requirement under separate legislation. And I do believe that these proposals would need to be advertised, so presumably that would invite public comment on them. As far as the build-outs are concerned, the proposals were originally, the proposals that we have anyway in front of us are to have build-outs as a measure of a means of slowing traffic along the B713. However, I believe that there are discussions taking place to change that to speed humps. But as I say, that will be subject to a separate process through the Ayrshire Roads Alliance.
Thanks, Chair. There's no standard consultation process required other than for road humps. So if it were build-outs, then we wouldn't require to consult. We would assess that, as Roads Authority and determine whether that was suitable or not. But if road humps were proposed, then that is required to be consulted upon. So yeah, we would have to work out the final design with the applicant, and if road humps were required, they would certainly be consulted upon.
Okay. You want to come back in, Councillor Lennox?
aye, please, thanks, Chair. That would concern me in that sense, and I'd rather. I think we need to include a condition that there's further consultation, whether it's road humps or build-outs. For me, that's important.
I think then, and take advice from planning colleagues, what you have as the road statutory process takes matters so far as Jane has clarified. So if it was speed humps, then there would be a further consultation under that legislation. If it's the build-outs, and we heard from Councillor Lennox, they may be of concern to residents, then I would think we would need to perhaps look at a planning condition if there's a perceived gap in the statutory process to require that there be, and I think everyone would recognise the merit. I think it's important here that should this be granted, that we don't, and it isn't perceived as a negative to the village, because the high level picture, as I understand it, I stand to be corrected, and as members will have read in the report, at the moment you have no footway over the bridge and you have 2-lane traffic. The proposal would be to have a footway in, which has to have an improvement in the current situation, but to install the footway you lose a lane, so it goes to single lane. So there will be obviously priority in one way or the other out the village, I think will be the priority. So there'll be priority. I think folk are then highlighting, if lorries are waiting any length of time, what's the impact and the extra emissions. But at the end of the day, you've got to balance that against the addressing of the fact that the residents are always highlighting that there's no footway. So that's an improvement. That's again at the expense of the developer. Speed humps, if that's the proposal, and I think everybody recognises Councillor Lennox's point about HGVs get over speed bumps, and we know you've got other HGVs who already are consented for other operations to use that road in numbers. So it's a real issue. So if it's not speed bumps and it's something different that wouldn't require a consultation under the roads legislation, then I'm looking to planning colleagues just to confirm whether or not it would be appropriate just to have a level of required consultation, namely that any proposals for instance, build-outs be put to the residents affected by it and their responses included, and see if we can't deal with it through a planning condition or otherwise by agreement with the developer, because it may be a gap in the statutory process, but it does seem like a sensible thing to do, and I'm pretty sure the developer would recognise the advantage of trying to take the residents with them as he's taking this development forward, should it be consented, rather than trying to impose traffic solutions on them that may not be to their satisfaction. So I think we do need to try and find a way that the residents can be involved to a reasonable extent in that process, but without turning it into a design by committee. Just look for planning colleagues, but that might lend itself to any form of condition if it does.
I think we have condition 24 at the moment that requires the details that were in the plans that we had to be implemented, and as I sort of said, that we wanted to have some flexibility in that in case they changed. Another way of dealing with it is that we require the details to be submitted to us, or the final details to be submitted to us prior to development commencing, and then for them to be implemented prior to the occupation of any of the houses. There isn't really a scope for any public consultation in that, though. It is basically a discharge of a condition, so there isn't any public involvement. We would consult with the Ayrshire Roads Alliance, but we wouldn't be inviting comments from the public, if that's what the query is.
No, I think what I'm looking for is just clarification whether as planning authority, if the information is submitted to us, whether or not it's appropriate to include in the condition that the developer evidence that they've communicated the proposals to the residents and any responses. That would be one option. The other option is when that information comes into the planning authority, appreciating there's no formal statutory process, would it be still not open to the planning authority to write to the residents and seek, even out with a statutory process, comments thereon to allow and give the comfort that any residents' views have been taken into account. They may not be the final determining factor, but it's allowing for a process by which they can have a say. So it's whether or not as planning authority we would be willing to undertake to introduce that, recognising it would be out with a statutory process.
Yeah, David, I think that may be appropriate in terms of we may need to do some changes to that condition 24, asking for details to be submitted in terms of the build outs and the proposed road changes. We could do a small sort of notification of neighbours or residents which are in close proximity to that, probably guided by the neighbour notification guidelines of the 20 metres on that, but it would be down to the planning authority to look at what would be appropriate there. But I think as a condition that would be appropriate.
Come that, Chair members, is simply that one way or another, through conditioning, we will either require the developer to run his proposals by the residents as part of that finalisation process, or we'll receive them and we will do so absent a formal statutory process, but we'll replicate that and be clear we're simply canvassing views before any final positions taken. We're down to the detail. We probably are designing this traffic safety by committee, but not here. But the bottom line is the point is about not just in the residents waking up one day and finding what's been inflicted upon them, but is actually trying to allow the residents to at least have a fair opportunity to have their say on that, noting that the roads process would only allow that if it's speed bumps proposals, and noting that the planning process strictly wouldn't. But either we will condition it that the developer will or we will, but it'll be one or the other. And as I say, I would hope the developer would recognise that it would be reasonable and indeed helpful for him to take the residents with him if this should be consented otherwise. So I'm quite sure that between us and the developer, we can build that into the process, albeit it's not a legal requirement. It seems a sensible thing to do, and therefore we should try and do it.
Yeah, are you quite happy with that, Councillor Lennox? I think that covers everything you were trying to achieve there.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I'm happy with that approach, and thanks to David for explaining it better than I could.
I'm going to bring in Councillor McGee now.
Just looking for a couple of points of clarity, but just on the build-outs, totally agree with that. I think we do it successfully in other areas. There are streets in Alloway, there's Cutstraw Road in Stewarton. As you go into Dundonnow, it's build-out. So with the number of heavy goods vehicles going up that road, I think it is quite a sensible proposal. Just to say in 317, I've got an extra zero in for the play park, and there's no a comma right enough to make it 1 million. So that is clear, Ken, it's supposed to be 100,000. But I was just looking for the clarity. Again, in the site visit, we discussed it, and I think I understood that where the path is going on the bridge, it's to the east side. And I think that was where we've seen most of the folk actually crossing the bridge. Is that the case? Again, it may be a minor point, but it was something that we noticed when we were out, that we never seen somebody walking across the other side of the bridge, and that's where we thought it was going at that time. I was just looking for clarity on that. I did have something else here, but I forgot to write it down, so I haven't got a pen. So old days doesn't come itself too late. Aye, that's fine, thank you.
Yeah, I can confirm it was on the east side of the bridge. It was where we saw the some people that were walking across the bridge on that side. So it does seem to be the obvious desire line for people to go.
I think on that, I think we both made comment in the site visit, the fact that people were travelling over the east, but if you're going to go to the school, then you need to cross the road again. So I think, obviously, at some point we'll need to look at the safety aspect and putting a crossing in there. I know that's not for our consideration at this time, but it's just like to highlight that point. And Councillor McGee, you want to come back in?
Just remembered our point of clarity. Now, I think the chair's briefing on Tuesday, the roads weren't going to be adopted. And now I'm led to believe they are going to be adopted. So I'm wondering, what about the retaining walls? That seemed to be the issue that we were being told why we weren't adopting the roads. I'm just looking for some clarity. Why is that change in these few short days? What's caused it, and what about the retaining walls? Because that seemed to be the big problem. Thank you.
Yeah, the retaining walls were the kind of main problem for ERA. Now the proposals are that when a roads construction consent is submitted, they'll also have to submit details of the retaining walls with that, so that ERA have assurance on the construction of them, so that they're not going to impact on the roads and allow them to be adopted. So that's the main change that's taking place.
I think through you, Chair, just to clarify, and I might be wrong again, but my understanding is it's not that the design has changed since Tuesday. It's quite simply, and it's maybe just a question of new broom. Obviously, the council now has the benefit of a fairly new head of ARA and a fairly new chief planning officer, and I think it's fresh eyes looking at the same information and coming to a different conclusion. I think as well it's important to note my understanding as the developer's position has changed in terms of being happy to accept the roads constructions consent process and the roads been adopted. So I think basically all parties have simply looked at the same proposals and come to a different conclusion, and I think rightly, because I think it probably is a better conclusion for all concerned. I believe the retaining walls are still an issue, and there may be a couple of small areas of this site that won't be adopted because of retaining walls, so there is a degree of consistency, but it's basically thanks to those colleagues that have come in with a fresh pair of eyes, and given that concerns were being raised, etc. about that, have engaged with the developer, and everyone's now happy to proceed on an alternative basis on the same proposals but with a different treatment.
I'm going to bring in Councillor Watts.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I do have a slight concern in the sense that we've just spent a significant amount of time putting together and working through the Local Development Plan 2, which has obviously gone through public consultation. It's been obviously gone to the reporter. And obviously within the Local Development Plan 2 plans, which obviously are our planning guidance as a council, we have removed this piece of land from from being allocated for development opportunity. My concern to that is that by approving this application, we in a sense could be setting a precedent of actually in a way going against our own LDP that we've spent a significant amount of time putting together. I understand and I know the need for housing within the south of East Ayrshire and within these communities, but my concern lies with the fact that this piece of land has been removed from the current LDP for development opportunity. And that's my point, Chair.
Chair, maybe just before, just from a governance perspective, just to assure Councillor Watts that's not the case. This wouldn't set a precedent, not just because it's each application on its own merits, but simply because, as is set out in the report, that overall the application is deemed to be compliant with other parts of LDP2. So it's not about departing from LDP2. It's not about setting a precedent that LDP2 is to be ignored. It complies with LDP2 overall, but you are quite correct that the site's been taken out. But as members also know, the previous planning history of any site is also relevant, and as is rightly and factually set out in the report, this has actually featured as a housing site in several previous development plans and was actually subject to a live consent in 2012, which subsequently expired before it was implemented. What's happened is the LDP2 process has been running in tandem with matters that the council couldn't be cited on, which was the sale of the site in 2020, and the second part was the submission of the application in 2021. So things have been running in tandem. But from a governance perspective, and the assurance to the committee is, as you can see in the treatment of this within the report, is that this would not set a precedent because overall the proposals are deemed to comply and fit with other elements of LDP2, such as it is capable, if you're minded, to grant this today without departing from or setting aside LDP2. So there's no question of creating a precedent because you're not actually even departing from it in this case. It simply complies with other elements, and we have to apply all the policies and all the elements of LDP2. So from a governance perspective, that's not the case, and I'm happy to give that assurance.
Thanks, David. I think that answers your question, Councillor Watson. Phil, you quite happy with that?
Yes, thank you, David, for the clarification.
Thanks. Okay, I'm going to bring in Councillor Maitland.
Thank you, Chair. Mary, that was quite detailed amendments there, and I realise this has been a movable feast since Wednesday. These are really good recommendations, if I understand them correctly. I would like some clarity when we're deleting 10 and 11, that the lighting is in there. So how will the lighting be accommodated into the plan now? And a lot of the questions I was going to ask have been answered, especially by David Mitchell concerning the build-outs, just because it's not statutory. We have a duty as councillors to our communities to involve them, I think, in this process, and I appreciate that that's gone into the amendments. So what's happening with the lighting? And secondly, could you repeat the amendments, please, so that we can have another go at understanding them fully? Thank you.
Chair, just in the first point, just to assure you, the lighting is part of the same process as the path. So in dealing with the roads being to adoptable standard and covered by road construction consent, that covers the lighting. The lighting needs to be the same specification because you couldn't adopt the roads if the lighting was substandard. So it's all part of the same statutory process under the roads legislation. I'll let Vary remind us of the conditions, Chair.
Yep, that hopefully answers your question about the lighting. In relation to the conditions, I'll just read out the conditions then. So there are 4 changes, 2 new conditions, 1 change to one of the conditions, and deletion of 1. So the first change, a new condition. So this would read, it would be in 2 parts. So part A says, no development shall take place unless full details of the long-term maintenance of the sewage treatment plant and its associated infrastructure has been submitted to and approved in writing by the Planning Authority. Such details shall include maintenance regimes and responsibilities. And part B says, the maintenance details as approved under A shall be fully implemented prior to the occupation of any of the dwelling houses approved and maintained in perpetuity unless otherwise agreed in writing by the Planning Authority. And the second is a new condition as well in relation to the management of surface water during construction. So it says, part A, no development shall take place unless full details of surface water management during the entire construction phase of the development have been submitted to and approved in writing by the Planning Authority. And part B says, the details as approved shall be implemented on site for the duration of the construction phase or as otherwise approved in writing by the Planning Authority. The third was an amendment to condition 24, which was requiring the traffic management works to be completed prior to occupation. But as we've discussed just there, we were proposing a bigger change to that condition to require the details to be submitted to the Planning Authority and approved in writing. And as part of that, the planning authority will carry out neighbour notification of the changes proposed. So I haven't obviously worked out the exact wording of that, but hopefully you understand what it will say. And then the deleted condition, condition 10 and 11. So condition 10 and 11 were requiring the details of the roads within the development, and this was on the basis that the roads weren't going to be adopted, so we wanted to have the details of lighting and the road surfaces and so on, and also the future maintenance of them. But now that the intention is that they'll be adopted in future, we don't see that as being required, so that's why it's recommended to delete conditions 10 and 11. Thank you.
That you, Councillor Maitland? Yeah. Okay. The only thing I was going to raise is obviously we've got the traffic management plan and we've got the school. This could avoid deliveries to the site maybe half an hour before and school started, maybe half an hour after. If that is possible to add
We
that.
could work that into the condition, yes, to add that. So that was, yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Councillor Maven.
Thank you, Chair. I'm delighted to see that they're going to improve the pavements access into the village. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it to the site visit. So could you show me some drawings or plans and give me some detail about where the pavement is just now and what the changes are to the pavement? How far up the hill heading south does that pavement go just now? There was one picture seemed to show pavements on both sides of the roads, but there was other pictures that was only one side.
I'll just share the presentation again, if you just bear with me. So this is at present, obviously. So this is just basically taken from the junction with the main street in Sorn. And you can see that there is a footway to the left-hand side, and there is also partly one to the right-hand side as well, but it stops just, there isn't very much, to be honest. It basically stops at just at the junction. So the proposals at present are for a footway to basically continue along this side, and it would go along the eastern side of the bridge. So where my cursor is at the moment, it would basically link into the existing footway. There may need to be improvements to what's there at the moment, but it would link in and continue to the other side. And then looking from the other side, so this is looking towards the village, it would link into this footway here.
That one on the left, that's just a short pavement, that doesn't go all the way up the hill.
I think it goes to bit Damhead.
Councillor Maven, can you press the mic, because this is getting recorded just when you're speaking.
Yeah, sorry.
It doesn't go all the way up the hill. I mean, I think it goes so far up. I'm not too sure how far, to be honest, but you can see there in that photograph, it doesn't, there's grass verge on that side. So that's, yeah, it's not going all the way up the hill. Whereas on the side where the development is, there is a footway. The development's proposed as a footway on that side. So that's looking back down. It's not the easiest to see, but there is a footway that goes from the application site all the way down to the bridge, but it stops at the bridge at the moment.
So right now there's pavements missing and
Yeah.
people are walking with traffic passing. That's a significant improvement to the safety.
Yeah, we're on the site visit. We witnessed people and buggies getting pushed over the road, but with no pavement. So yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Members, are there any further questions or clarification you need? So the application is up for approval. Obviously, we've got additional conditions plus amendments to condition 24 and deletion of conditions 10 and 11. I think that's right, Cheryl. Yep. So, Councillor Maitland, what come in?
I'd just like to move that we approve the application. Thank you.
Councillor McGee, you want to come in?
I would second that with the changes that we've discussed. Aye, thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else otherwise minded? No. Okay, I think that's the plan. Yeah, application approved.
Just on that, and thank you. Now that the committee's taken the decision, I would just take the opportunity to strongly encourage both the applicant and colleagues in planning and ARA to set up an early meeting well pre-start so that everyone's clear on what needs to be done and what's required to be ticked, what boxes need to be ticked off, etc., before development can commence. So we've all got the same shared understanding of the steps that need to be gone through before there can be a commencement on site in relation to the various conditions. So I think an early pre-start meeting would probably be helpful in terms of making sure that what the committee expects now to see in terms of the conditioning is indeed what is takes place subsequently. So it's not a condition, it's not a proposal, it's just strongly encourage all parties to have an early meeting to be clear on who needs to do what when, because I appreciate there's a time constraint, but equally these conditions need to be fulfilled before there's a commencement. So I think an early positive pre-start meeting with all parties would probably be advisable, but I'll leave that to colleagues and to the developer.
Yeah, thanks, David. Okay, members, we're going to move on to item 4 on the agenda, and that is planning application number 24/0107/TP, and that's application for tree works for tree felling to carry out inspections of footbridge foundations Irvine Road to Strathholm Terrace footbridge New Mills. And can I ask Fiona to take us through that presentation? Thanks.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is an application which has received more than 10 objections and requires therefore to be determined by committee. The site concerns land around a metal framed footbridge which spans the River Irvine and connects Irvine Road with Strathholm Terrace in an established residential area of New Mills. ARA, as applicant, have provided additional supporting information with regard to the needs for the work. The need for the works starting at page 5 of your report. I won't go through that here for you members, but it is on record in your report. I'll just run through some slides for you, if you just bear with me. Hopefully it's on screen now. We have a location plan, members, just to show the location. Here's the bridge here, and you can see just the sort of red line details of the site. Again, just a location plan slightly further out. We have the main road here going through New Mills and the A71. So here is the details of where the tree is located on the banking of the river on the side of Irvine Road leading over to Strathholm Terrace. That's just the local development plan, members, just to show you that the site's within the settlement boundary of the town. Details of the access into the bridge. Details of the sort of tree itself, members. You can see here just a little bit of detail of the tree. You can see the trunk and the sort of branches coming out, and that sort of directly relates to what Outdoor Services have said to you in their consultation response. Again, a bit of a clearer picture, members. You can see how the trunk has been topped at some point, and you can see the branches and the growth that are coming out the tree. A bit more detail for you again. And again. Okay, that's us. I'll just leave that up for the minute just till I finish chatting through. The primary and sole consultee is Outdoor Services, who, as per the report, have advised that the oak tree was severely damaged several years ago and was left like a totem pole when the tree trunk snapped in high winds. Young branch growth has emerged from the lower trunk, which you can have seen from the photographs, which makes the tree look like more like a tall bush. Some of this growth will have weak attachments that will be prone in future to breakage during high winds. If the tree is hampering bridge inspection works, Outdoor Services advise that there are no objections to its removal, provided a root balled or container grown extra heavy standard oak is planted in the same location during the next planting season. We have received 12 individual representations to the proposal, all objecting to the application. We have no letters of support. All objections in brief, albeit these are more detailed in your report, relate to the condition of the tree, local amenity, need for the tree works, wildlife implications, protecting green space and the benefits trees have with carbon dioxide absorption. The supporting information provided by the applicant, combined with a consultation response from Outdoor Services relative to the value of the tree to the surrounding area, provides sufficient justification for its removal. The objections in balance do not warrant the refusal of the application. To ensure the long-term character and visual amenity of the area and the existing TPO is maintained and enhanced, a suitable replacement tree can be sought by condition as per the comments from Outdoor Services. Whilst Outdoor Services have asked for a replacement tree to be in the same location, Given that there are pending future bridge works that may affect any such replacement, it's considered to be reasonable to allow a replacement tree be planted at a location to be agreed with the planning authority within the general vicinity of the site. The application is therefore recommended for approval with the condition regarding a placement tree at page 73, and you'll see just the wording from that condition, members, if I can just turn to it. Part A is that the applicant, if the application is approved, is required to give us a plan showing on page 73, showing the proximity, showing basically the location of the tree in proximity to where the felled tree will be replaced. Part B specifies the details of the tree as per Outdoor Services response, and Part C refers to maintaining the health of the tree, etc., for 10 years from the date of planting and any replacements that might be required. And on that basis, we're recommending approval with that condition. Thank you.
Thanks, Fiona. Members, over any clarification questions? No. So, is everyone happy to approve the application? Okay. Okay.
Yes.
That's it. Yep, that's the plan application approved then. Thank you very much. Subject to the conditions. Thank you. Well, that concludes today's business. Thank you very much for attending the meeting. Okay.
Thank you, Chair.